Hey guys, what's going on? This is Crux here. I've decided to do a long-form track building tutorial because I just feel like there's nothing really out there for newer builders except for a few odds and ends. So we're going to do something a little different this time. I'm not going to do one-offs, we're just going to build a track together, and I'm going to explain what I'm doing and how to get started, any little things that come up, and hopefully find something useful in here. So I'm assuming like you've played City Rumble and you've maybe played a few online matches and you're like, yeah, I want to build a track. Well, to get started, we go over to the track builder, and you got three options from here. You have community tracks, which is where all the community tracks are uploaded and you can preview them and like from the screen. You can't play them, you'll have to go to time trial to do that. And then we got my tracks, which shows my shared tracks and my locally stored tracks. So that's where you can look at your own stuff. Then you get your track builder. So when you select your track builder, you got a few different options. These are all the default ones here that come with the game. And then you've got the DLC options right here. These three. And if you want to build them, you're going to have to buy the content. But for now, we're not going to bother with those. We're just going to go into one of the default spots. Probably just the track room for today because it's open and gives us lots of space to work. It's a great place to start for your first track. So, right off the bat, we get start lines. There's going to be a bunch of different start lines here, depending on how far through the campaign you've unlocked. And these will give you different options in the interactive select. For now, we're just going to go ahead and go to a course, and I'm just going to quickly highlight two different start options. So there's the normal boost start, which is boost on 2, and it'll give you maximum 3 pips. And then there's the charger start, which is the button masher, that will give you a button mash start and get you underway quick. So we're just going to use the charge start for now. And I think I'm going to, since we're doing a course here, I'm going to go ahead and place her down right on the ground in the corner. I would not do this if I had a circuit selected. If you have a circuit selected, make sure you have enough room on the back end in order to reconnect your track. But since we're using a course, and I'd highly recommend a course for your first build because people are much more likely to select courses due to the fact that they're not usually as long. So if it's a bad course or a bad build, people won't be stuck on it. Alright, so rule of thumb on your start line is you always want to just kind of start off with a straightaway. It gives people a chance to get started and get established in the pack order. And then we're going to go ahead and build our first corner. So, obviously we can't go left here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and tip up a touch so that we're off the ground. And then we're going to place a piece, and then that gives us enough room that we have a bit of a bank on our turn here. And as you can see, we're just going to do a big sweeping 180. And what I've done here, I should mention this, I've actually tipped the course a bit, so my right bumper and my left stick will allow me to tip the course up and down. Also the tip of the course up and down, so you can see you could do some crazy things with this, right? You can do a big sweeping turn and so on and so forth. Another thing I should note is that if you need to replicate a piece, right bumper and A will replicate. Makes life easy. But we're not doing anything that extreme yet. We're just going to go ahead and build a nice sweeping turn here. Let's just go ahead and do that. So, you see the bottom piece is now clipping into the ground, and the track select won't let us place this. So what we're going to actually do is we're going to go ahead and hit a right bumper and Y, and that's going to snap us to ground. Alright, so now that we've selected our first turn, we're going to go ahead and test. Super important to test often. I'd highly recommend that you don't select a super meta car for this process. Because the meta cars have higher properties than most cars, it's going to make it hard for you to get a feel for the course. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the legendary El Camino. It's a pretty middling boost car. It's a good tester, so let's go ahead and give her a run. Alright, so yeah, that feels really good. A little bit long even, but it should work just fine. So what should we do next? Well, a good rule of thumb for beginner builders is you kind of want to loop in on your own track. So what we're going to do is we're going to just do a hairpin here. But I know that this hairpin, because it's flat on the ground and there's no lean, is going to make people hit the wall. So what I'm actually going to do to increase the hairpin's drivability is use fan turns. I don't recommend overusing this technique. I only use it when I'm on the ground. If I'm in the air or off the ground at any point, I will always use lean, preferably, because fans have some strange properties sometimes. Another thing to keep in mind is there enough time to boost after a turn? People naturally do want to boost after turns, so it's definitely something to keep in mind when you're creating your exits. So we're going to go ahead and do this, and we're actually going to go ahead and start setting up for a jump after. We're just going to use that, and I'm going to need to go a little bit further. We're just going to tip that right there. So a good rule of thumb with jumps is you want to always use your invisible track to connect the air sections to each other. So we place our jump, and this is our trajectory here. But now this would be if there was zero gravity. But of course there is gravity in the game, so we're going to go ahead and act like this is the gravity here. And that's a rough idea of what the jump is going to do to your car when you hit it. So with that, we can actually just back it up, and we're going to go ahead and place our landing. I'm thinking somewhere around here. And another good rule of thumb is magnet tracks for your landings, so that if people are overshooting the jump, the magnet track will actually grab them. Now, super important for newer builders, it's been quite a while since we've had a checkpoint, and the driver has the opportunity to leave the track we have walls all the way up to that point, so there's no way to get off, but here there is. So we're going to go ahead and add our first checkpoint. This is super important. Even if you build bad tracks, or you build subpar tracks, or you're just messing around, adding checkpoints will make your track much more likely to get attention. People that have been playing the game a long time, like me and some of my other Discord friends, we often will look for checkpoints when we're selecting tracks, and we won't select a track if it has no checkpoints. Mostly because cutting it becomes a game of who can cut and not a race, you know. So let's go ahead and test our jump out. And that feels good. We'll boost off of it next time we take it, just to confirm that this checkpoint isn't too close, but that seems good for now. So, we've got a nice little starting section. Let's go ahead and do something a little bit different here. Let's do a big giant mag turn. So, the way magnets work is that if you are on a inclined surface, they will treat it as if you are completely flat to the ground. So, they're great for high G turns because they essentially will remove the gravity from it, creating an opportunity to slow down, and then you'll take the turn as if it's flat, and then you'll basically use gravity to increase speed on your way out. So we're just going to try and level this. There's easiest ways to snap to ground, and then use your left bumper and upward on your stick to bring it back up to level. This will level your track. Unfortunately, if you don't have access to a ground piece, you are just going to have to eyeball it, and the easiest way to do that is just stick your camera, and you're just going to use your right bumper and just basically be doing this until you figure it out. In our case though, we do have snap to ground, so we're going to go ahead and use that as a technique here. Make sure you're not using right when you do this, because it'll change the angles. Make sure you're using your left bumper. Alright, that feels okay. Okay, I think we should do a little ground section now. So what we're gonna do is, well, first we're gonna go ahead and snap to ground here. We're gonna extend this out. We'll go ahead and place a checkpoint once again because this will give you an opportunity to leave the track. I want to make sure that we force our drivers to stay on it. Now we're going to use a big sweeping turn, and I'm actually going to do a halfway and then another one. Well, let's just see. That's not quite straight, so let's just back him up a bit. Not quite there. Just a little bit more. Too much. There. Okay, so you can always use, when you're trying to figure out if something's straight, you can actually use another track piece to check. It's the easiest way to do it. And if you didn't know how I was deleting left bumper B, I know I'm moving fast. If you don't know the controls, you're just going to have to work on figuring out what the controls are. I try to highlight it when I'm doing something that is not easy or is unorthodox, but I'm assuming you know the basic controls by now, for the most part. Alright, so I've done this for a reason, and the main reason being I actually want to create a little ground section. So we're just going to do a little jump here to make the track interesting. And it's just going to be a small one, nothing major. We're just going to go ahead and do this. Make sure that if you use your left bumper and drop it, you can make sure that they will have enough clearance. And once again, driver has an opportunity to leave track, checkpoint. And we're going to go ahead and place down here. We're going to create a bit of a lean. So what I'm doing is I'm hitting right bumper and Y because I want people to be able to make this turn. Then I'm using right bumper and up to get the track back level. I don't love that, so we're just going to go ahead and tighten that up a bit. That looks better. So from here, we're going to make sure we have a ground piece because the respawns can work kind of funky sometimes if you do not. I don't know why, I just don't like it, so I just find it's easier to use them. Alright, so we're off. We're on the ground now. So I'm going to go ahead and use street section. I feel like this is unfortunately just too much time on the ground, so I'm going to create a little zigzag section here to get us set up. We'll add boost and interactives through there to keep that interesting. We're just going to go ahead and jig this where we want it. I'm using my left bumper and it changes the tip stays the same, but the middle of the track bends to accommodate. Alright, and that seems better, so let's go ahead and make sure we're actually on the ground piece there. Not quite. And that seems better. Alright, so let's go to our ground section here. And we're going to go ahead and use the track we've already built here. So I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to place our checkpoint right in there. So we're just going to try to get this as close to the center point as we can. Just trying to get back off of this. Pretty close. That's about the best we're going to do, unfortunately. So this is going to look strange, but when you're taking it, because it's on the ground, people can take those however they like. It's very unrestrictive. And we're going to go ahead and pop back onto the track right here. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit a checkpoint right here. Hopefully. Yeah, there we go. And that's because this lip here will allow people to jump again. So I just want to create a checkpoint there. Let's give her a test. Alright, not bad. I have discovered a problem. So this right here allows people to leave track. So I'm just going to go ahead and place a checkpoint here. And that's just to make sure that people don't get squirrely on us. Oh, and I've soft locked. Great. Alright, so that actually brings us to an opportunity to talk about the track builder and the most infuriating glitch in the game. It's called soft locking. So what I'm pretty sure has happened is I'm pretty close to the ground in the wall here. And I'm pretty sure that when I went to modify, one part of the track clipped into the ground. So what we're going to do, I got lucky. It didn't hard lock, it was just the soft lock there. I could back out to construction and continue on. What we're going to do though is we're going to save right now. Because honestly, anytime, doesn't matter what the name is, just save. Every time you go in to make modification, it is a good practice to save if you can. Okay, so I think that's going to be okay. It's not the most beautiful thing in the world, but I'm just going to leave it for now. Alright. So far so good. Now, how can we have this track interact with itself? I think what we're going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and go off to the right. Okay, so leveling a track in this situation. There's two things I could do here. One, I could go create some fans, use the gravity and the fans combination to keep the driving surface feel level. But in this case, I'm going to level out. So the first thing I'm going to do when leveling out is I'm going to go ahead and hit my right bumper and my left stick depressed, and we're going to change our roll offset to central instead of automatic or reverse. So that's the first thing. So we're just going to go ahead and right bumper middle, so we're central. And we're just going to have to eyeball this, unfortunately, until it feels right. The other thing I'm doing is I'm extending it all the way out. That'll make the transition smoother overall. And that looks good. So let's do a long section, a short section. We're going to actually remove the walls from this. Continue on, and from here we're going to start a turn. I'm actually just going to leave this flat for alignment purposes. Okay, we're too big, let's cut that in a bit. Still too big, tighten it up. Let's actually just increase the geometry as we go here. Let's just make that last bit a fin. That should help people stay in line with the track. I'm just trying to line it up here. This is the finicky part. That's not bad. just gonna go ahead. Here's the hard part. So we could place this, but invisible track won't clip on itself, and there's no room to really maneuver it out of the way because we're so tight. This is honestly one of my biggest gripes about the track builder. Why can't I place an invisible track through track? Honestly, huge perk would be able to place invisible track through other sections of track. But unfortunately we can't do that, so we just work around it. So what we're going to do is we're actually just going to back up a touch. We're going to increase it a touch, and we're trying to just give ourselves enough room that we can get our track away from there. And every time we back up, I'm just increasing the height a bit so that the car will drop onto the track section. We're still not quite there, unfortunately. Just not quite enough room. I feel like there should be, but we're not. Alright, this should do it, I think. Come on. Not enough. This is the frustrating and time-consuming part of the track builder, is things like this, where you just unfortunately have to trial and error until it works. And there it is, and we're actually a touch early, so I'm going to bump it forward a bit. There, that should be sufficient. Let's see if we can get it even tighter. There we go. That's about as tight as we're going to get it. I think we're actually even a bit. That seems okay, actually. So let's go ahead with that. I'm just going to go ahead and back these off of each other. And rather than trying to go over, I'm actually just going to back up. I want it to be as tight to the other end as possible, so I'm just going to go ahead and work from underneath. This does take up more budget than normal, however it'll give us some freedom when we're placing our other piece there. I'm just using the track above. Another little tip is if you actually have track above, you can sometimes just push it up and through to check it. That's good. Alright, so we're just going to bring that up. And there's our track saying, I don't like that. Alright, and we're going to go ahead and place this piece here. I think we have enough room for a checkpoint. I'm just going to create a little sharp. So I'm going to use lean here to create a sharp underturn. This out, and we're going to go ahead and use the ground to level out. Actually, we'll just go level right there. Nice. Test time. So I'm going to change my vehicle here just to try it with something else. It's good practice just to change your vehicle periodically. Sometimes you'll find issues. Great. That felt excellent. There's only a few things I noticed. One was it's entirely possible to overshoot this. So I might move this back a touch. Because this jump is so short, I think we'll be fine if we move our checkpoint back, which will then give us more time to reach the ground. I'm actually just going to go ahead and do this instead. And that should create a smoother transition than what we used to have there. And just in case, we're going to go ahead and add a higher barrier wall there. And that should also help prevent people from flying over. Should being the keyword. I mean, if you're motivated, you still could fly over there. This all felt good. I like this. That felt excellent. All this worked flawlessly. I think... yeah, no. Unfortunately, we do need all those pieces. So, and this felt excellent as well. Alright, so we've got a pretty interesting track. The runtime is a touch short still, but it is coming along nicely. So, every time, so free cam is a great way to take a look at your track and just kind of think about where we're going to go next and what we're going to do. I think we should come and weave through this section here. So we're going to try to cut back on our track, and as you can see, we've got a lot going on over there, so we're going to take a nice long wide sweeping inlay to get there so that we come in at the right angle. This looks kind of strange. Let's go ahead and set central. We'll bring our tip up here. That looks a little better. We're just gonna... It's always good to look down your track to kind of get a feel for how it'll look from a car's perspective. And that's getting a little funky. That should be good. Let's go ahead and just bring him out. I'm just trying to get this track, there it is, to snap. We're just gonna go ahead and build this into a flattening turn. Sometimes when you snap, the track will go red. What you do when this happens is you just hit your right bumper and bring it up a touch. That should feel fine. And let's set up here. We're just gonna go ahead and do this. So let's go ahead and bring that jump up. And we're gonna go ahead and create our launch. And this is gonna be the jump trajectory. So this is gonna seem long until I add interactives, because what I'm doing here is I'm setting this jump up with the intention of boosting. So I'm going to give it a nice long landing, and we're going to do our standard post-jump checkpoint. We'll just wrap this out a bit. Let's have a test. Perfect. All right, so I think we have a pretty good length and an interesting track. It's definitely going to be a sprint track more than anything, just due to its short nature. But that's okay, because what that means is people are not going to be afraid to pick it, because they're not going to get stuck on it. We can get a track with a few likes, and hopefully it'll come up in multiplayer. And that's what we're trying to do with our first track. Nothing fancy, we're just trying to get familiarized and make something that's fun to race. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and place our finish line. But before we do, I'm actually just going to save. And this also goes for connecting to the circuit. Before you connect, always do a save. Soft locking has the most potential when you're making edits to your track. So definitely always save before you place finish or connect finish. All right. So let's go into the modify panel. Alright, so our track is looking kind of orange. Not a lot going on looks-wise. So let's go ahead and customize it. Okay, let's have a look. So, our track is looking kind of orange and a little bit boring in the looks department. So let's go ahead and do some customization. So I always do this post. You can also do this as you go, but I do it post because I've learned how to do it quite quickly after the fact. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit our X button, and this will allow us to change colors on the track piece we've selected. Also, it will allow us to change our walls, and you will get different types of options depending on the track piece you've selected. So let's go ahead and create a black start line and a black piece, and we're going to go ahead and add some flags here to the left and right to signify the start of the race. Now, I have a color scheme. I typically will use blue for corners, and the other thing I will often do is, if I have a wall to do it, I will place turn signals. Now, I might go wallless here on the inside, but something we have to keep in mind is where's our next checkpoint. And unfortunately, our next checkpoint isn't till over there. So people could just turn off of the track and drop onto this section here, and we don't want that, so we're going to go ahead and leave the wall on this one. Let's do a red section here. Change this to blue. There's fans here, so unfortunately we can't do turn signal. We could do it on the inside, but I don't really like the way that looks. Let's go ahead and add some flags here. And I'm going to make my takeoff yellow. And And here I'm actually going to add some extended walls to allow people to make a slight adjustment errors and still make it or get bumped. Here's my checkpoint. I'm going to go ahead and start with another black section. Unfortunately, I can't change the color of this, but what I can do is add a turn signal. And because we have a checkpoint fairly close off, I think I'm actually going to take off the inside wall as well. Because I'm doing that though, I think I want to telegraph that the walls are coming off, and I'm going to do that on the enter and exit as well to create a symmetry. Let's go ahead and add that to black. And we'll go ahead and switch to red there. Actually, black's fine. Alright, big blue sweeping turn. We're going to go ahead and add some turn signals. Yellow for launch. I'm going to leave this one wall-less, but not extended. Let's go into a red section here. And we're going to go ahead and change this to blue. Hopefully that should suffice. We're going to actually use an alternating color scheme here. To help people see the turn geometries, because I'm not going to use signals there at all. And let's, just for the heck of it, let's go ahead and add light walls. This is just for aesthetics. Nobody's going off here. I'm just doing this for the look of it. So as you can see, there's options with lights and without lights. So I'm doing the one with lights here. Alright, this is all normal tracks, so we can't do anything there. Let's go ahead and make this section black. We'll add our nice big blue sweeping turn with the lights here. Once again, I'm not going to make that wall-less because there's no checkpoint for quite some time. And on that note, I actually have noticed, because there's no checkpoint, somebody could just go left here. They could drive along here, and instead of taking this turn we've created, they could just turn straight off onto the mag section, and I don't want that. So let's go ahead. We're going to have to be careful there. That's not going to let us reconnect. How to do this? So this is what I was mentioning when I meant save before you do customization, because often you will see things that you maybe have missed. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect from there so that we can still come back. I'm going to add our checkpoint. And we're going to go back up and do that. Now, yeah, see, now we're too low. That's not going to work. Let's see if we can come up a bit on this section. Let's have a look. That's still not quite enough, so let's back it up one. Come up. Go to our fan turn here. Just try to make sure we're all lined up again. I think that's okay. And let's go ahead add our checkpoint. Off kilter, so I'm just gonna go ahead and correct that. That looks good. I'm probably gonna have to test that, but I think that should work. And we're just gonna, okay, so this is important. When you have a piece and it's just doing its own thing, or it's auto-connecting and you can't move it, it'll be left bumper Y, will allow you to snap things to the whole section of track. Okay, perfect. This is great. I'm glad this happened on this track. Okay, we've officially locked. So when and we even saw it, when I connected this piece here, This piece here decided to move, therefore causing us to clip on something on the track. Now, if we'd connected our finish line, we wouldn't be able to do anything. In this case, we're capable of backing off, but we're not going to do that at all. We're actually just going to reload our game. So yes, I want to leave, and no, I do not want to save this track. So because we were done building, we can just reload before the soft lock. And yes, we lost all our customizations. But honestly, that's for the best. I'd rather that than lose the whole track. So rather than making you rewatch me customize that all again, I'm just going to snap forward with the changes I want made, and we'll move on from there. Alright, so we're back. I have fixed the soft lock, rebuilt our checkpoint here to make sure there's no skipping, and I've customized up to this point. So, we're just going to keep going from here. There's not a lot left to do, we're just going to go ahead and keep our normal track building. I've kind of got a theme going with the way I'm customizing this. Keep in mind, you can do whatever theme you want. I just like to keep things consistent. Just my preference. So that's something I tend to do. But most of the time you can color however you want. I just like to create a pattern to make my tracks easier to read. Okay, so here's a good example. I can, yeah. Sometimes you won't be able to place extended walls if there's objects near them. But in this case we are fine. Let's just do a big one. Blue strip here with a yellow finish, and so we're at our end. So you may think our track is done. However, we have definitely forgotten one thing, and that's interactive objects. I'm going to go ahead and test the track to see that everything works properly, and we're going to go ahead and add interactives as we go. This is how I like to do it. So we're just going to go ahead and clip along here. So that first turn, I've noticed I took that wide. So one thing I'm going to go ahead and do here, I'm going to go to my complex objects, and I'm going to go ahead and hit my right bumper, and I'm going to stretch a magnet strip right on the edge of that. And that's just to help people with grip on that turn at high speeds. Hopefully that assists with that turn. Okay, so on that turn, we just did, that was a big sweeping turn. Let's make that a bit more interesting. Let's go ahead and add a zip strip on the inside. I'm just going to pop this out from the wall a touch. I like to use the line you can see off the wall as a reference point, as a good spot to put zip strips on the inside. And because we have a zip strip, it's going to want to throw me outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, I'm actually going to use a charger strip here. And the reason behind this is that when you start to get pushed outside, you can power drift the turn. So you could also use a magnet strip if you prefer, but this will allow for a technique on big sweeping turns where it's called power drifting, where you're boosting through the turn. So as it throws you, you turn your car in and you use your boost to project yourself forward. And that'll allow for plenty of speed through this here. We're definitely going to have to test this to make sure that it's not too much. Hopefully, because we have such a low launch trajectory here, we should be fine. But we'll definitely have to check it. Alright, so that felt pretty good. I did hit the wall as you saw, but I'm okay with that. That was more a scale issue than anything else, so this could be more interesting though. So let's go ahead and do some zip strips combined with some charge strips to create some interest. And you know what? We're gonna actually even do a barrier. I hate barriers, but sometimes they do add some diversity to a track. I'm sure people know that have played with me how much I hate barriers, but they do have their place. It's unfortunate sometimes you have to scroll through the track using the modify to get back to the piece you were on. Let's go ahead and stick a zip strip behind him. And that seems like an appropriate amount for now. Alright, and so right here, I'm going to do a little jump boost pad. So we're just going to do this, and this, and we're going to add one more. I'm just going to go ahead and place it, pick it back up. Let's do that. And hopefully that works well. I think that's enough space. We'll go ahead and do another one on exit here. Let's just do one there, and we'll do one here. We'll just tighten them up to each other. And if you take that inside line, you should be good to hit those. If you're outside, too bad. This is all fine because I know we are going to be taking that slower and slower as we go. And same with that. This, however, definitely can be, we're going to do this as a high speed section. So, what I'm doing here is something we call in the track building community speed tech. At least for Hot Wheels, I know Trackmania's got its own speed tech. But essentially what we do is we make it so that you're at max speed the whole way without using your own boost. So we do that just by placing boost pads. There's two different patterns you can use for this. One is the tri pattern I'm using now, but there's also the triple up pattern, which the diagonal, which looks really good on turns as well, like so. Definitely preference. That's totally up to you which one you prefer. Unfortunately, we can't set them all side by side because, you know, milestone. But make do with what you have, right? Alright, and that should be good to finish her off. I think I'm going to put a turn signal here. Let's go ahead and add a double wide zip strip here. just to make sure people have enough speed. I don't necessarily want them boosting, but I do want them to make that jump, so let's do this. People should be able to be in the middle of those and still hit them. This, I'm just going to leave that because I want a battle with boost. So when you come on up to your final turn, I like to leave the final turn minimal. And that's just so that if people are in a tight race where boost is a matter of winning and losing, I want the boost to matter. I also want jigging and turns to matter. I want drafting to matter in the final section, so I tend to just leave them blank. Okay, so I feel pretty good about this, so let's go ahead and test before we do anything else. Okay, I have decided perhaps I do not like this. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to remove that inside strip. I'm going to place this guy in the center, and I'm good with that. Never be afraid to remove something if you've tested it and it's not really to your likings. Nothing is set. Honestly, even until you have 20 likes or 30 likes, nothing is set. I will often delete a track with 5 to 10 likes just to go back and fix something that is annoying me. Remember, these tracks are not going anywhere, so it is best to have them the way you like them, or they will bother you in the long run. And there, I've had my barrier, but that's to be expected. It appears that should be fine. And here's our speed text section. Not bad. So, one thing I noticed is that I feel like our speed tech was a touch on the tight side. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to pull these back a touch. Give myself a touch more room to slow down on that final section. That should be fine. Alright. And assuming that's good, everything else felt decent. I was happy with most of it. This was pretty tight, but I'm actually okay with that because that was fun. It felt on the edge, so to speak. Alrighty, I'm totally good with this, so let's go ahead and do the last thing we have to do, which is verification. So, we can't validate yet. We just need to place our finish line first. Boom. Go ahead and make that yellow too. And let's go ahead and validate. So as you can see, we made this track and we're still only at 1,000 budget. You could take this a lot further. Honestly, if you've been following along with me and you're building with me as I'm building this and you want to keep going, feel free to keep going. I mean, 3,000 budget is a ton. And since we're on a course and not a circuit, you can just build to your heart's content. You're never going to make a track that's too long. With the circuit, we definitely could make a track that feels too long, but as a course, really, we could just go for another. You could fill this most of this room and be fine. we only filled the corners, so like maybe half of the room. So yeah, you really could fill the whole room and be just fine. So if you want to keep going, honestly. Just as a newer track builder, definitely start with courses and then work your way into circuits once you have time building. So the last step is validation. The validation tractor is always an interesting vehicle to be running. I would love to have validation races at some point where everybody is in the tractor and only track builders are allowed, but we will see. Don't worry about how something feels in the tractor. I've come to find that if you've tested your track enough, you just have to get through the track within the tractor. It doesn't really matter if it feels good or if you're hitting walls or anything. However, definitely have to be able to drive in order to validate hard things. So like anytime you play a track and it's like way too hard and you can't hit a jump, remember somebody did it in the tractor when they made it. So if they can do it in the tractor, you can do it in your car or a monster truck in some cases. That is another thing I forgot to mention is you should try to test your tracks with a monster truck if at all possible. I know I didn't because there's nothing in here that would give monster trucks an issue, but it is good to test for monster truck viability because some tracks just are not doable in the monster truck. So definitely something to keep in mind. Whee! I love that jump. Alright, and there we go. Congratulations, we have finished your first track. Let's go ahead and name it. Not ASDF, preferably. Let's name this. I'm going to do simple time. CX. Another thing is, if you've always wondered about my CX tag or anything like that, it's just a moniker. I know a couple like Mogroth uses Mog for a lot of his tracks, RJR for my buddy RJ. A lot of people use like SBox or Speedbox's tracks. It's a good way to kind of separate your tracks out from the dross. Definitely fun to come up with a moniker. The shorter the better though. Also take your tracks, helps filtering. This is a high speed and it's got some checkpoints, so we'll go ahead. Yeah, we'll go ahead and just call it a high-speed checkpointed time. And this is where you share, so go ahead and share it as well while you're at it. I, unfortunately, have reached max slots, so let's go ahead and delete one of my old tracks. This is an unfortunate part. Yeah, Lift, you're quite old, and I don't think you ever did well. Let's go ahead and get rid of you. Perfect. So we've officially shared it. So now you go to your local tracks and you admire your work in your preview. And I think this looks like something that somebody would pick if they wanted to play it online. It looks pretty good. Well, that's all, folks. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. And yeah, good luck in your building. Crux out.